centurion and the soldiers, unless these men stay on the ship, you cannot be saved. You can't let them go. They can't get off. We've got to stay together, remain together. Paul's still putting his trust in God through one of the toughest storms ever. A storm so severe that the sailors start losing hope and trying to jump ship, literally. Paul says, this can't happen. You got to keep us all together. We've all got to stay here. And so, verse 33, they've been a long time without food. 14 days, it tells us down here. Barry told us as he began to read in verse 21, they were weary from not having any food. So Paul says, eat. Verse 34, eat, for it'll strengthen you. For not a hair is to perish from the head of any of you. I got to be honest with you. From the standpoint of the storm, I don't want to be on this ship. But from the standpoint of the promise of verse 34, I'd have loved to have been on that ship. I'd like to still have my hair. He said, you ain't even going to lose a hair off of your head. In other words, as many hairs as you have this day, right now, you'll arrive on land with that many hair in your head. What a promise. What a trust. What a way to illustrate the fact that God is in control here, and anything God wants to do. You see, I'm asking church this morning, is our trust founded in God? Is our faith founded in the foundation of God? Are our eyes fixed steadfastly upon the God of heaven? We see the end of the story. Verse 23, verse 43 rather, the ship's about to come to pieces here. And so they're afraid that these prisoners are going to get away. And so they decide, hey, you know what? We can't let these prisoners escape, so we'll just kill them. We'll just kill all the prisoners, and then that way they don't escape. But the centurion, verse 43, he says, wait a minute. If we kill all the prisoners, we're going to kill Paul. And we can't kill Paul. Now here's a man that they wouldn't listen to in verse 10, to a man that is ultimately going to save the life of every prisoner on the boat. Just because of him. We have come from verse 10, refusing to listen to Paul and heed his advice, to verse 43, now by the mercy of the centurion and his desire to keep Paul alive, he keeps every prisoner on the ship. And I don't know how many, 276 total on the ship. I don't know how many prisoners were on the ship. If it's in here, I don't know where it's at. But I'm convinced there were several. And because of that, wishing to save Paul, he keeps them from carrying out their plan. And so prisoners included began to jump overboard and make out for land. Notice verse 44, and the rest of the planks are the pieces of the ship. And so it was that all were brought safely to land. How many? All. All of every one of them. What had God promised through the angel to Paul? What had Paul told them? Guys, we got to put our trust in God, and He's going to bring us all safely to land. Now, verse 44 shouldn't be a surprise. They're floating in on planks of the ship that has unraveled and come apart. And when they get to the beach, guess how many's there? All of them. Guess how many's safe? All of them. Now, there's the story. There's what happens. There's the proof of God's faithfulness and the fact that, church, we need our trust in the same God. Paul says in verse 23, an angel of the God to whom I belong. And an angel of the God to whom I worship. Paul says that's where my trust is. So having looked at the story, what do we learn from the story? Randy, could we get verse 8 of Acts chapter 27 for those that aren't able to see it in the Bible, in their lap? Coasting along it with difficulty, we came to a place called Fair Havens. We came to a place called Fair Havens. And what we know about Fair Havens is that it was on the southern coast of the island there. And what we also know is that it was protected by some land and some islands from the winds and the winter and all of the tempestuous stuff that the sea could brew up. And so it had a blockade, if you will, to protect it. And ships would come in and they would winter there for months. It's a place called Fair Haven. Do you think it's called Fair Haven because back in 1309 somebody landed there and said, you know what, I think we ought to call this city Fair Haven? I don't think that was the case. As a matter of fact, you can't find that. You know what I think it was the case? I think it was called Fair Haven. You know why? Because if you could get there, you'd have a fair haven. What can we learn from that? What we can learn from that is that life is tough sometimes, isn't it? The wind blows, the seas beat, the waves pound, the ship of life becomes rocked and battered and bruised and banged, and it even breaks in some places. Life isn't always fair, is it? Life isn't always easy. Life can be sometimes very difficult. What some people in this building need is they need a fair haven. Meaning that they need to pull into the harbor and anchor for the winter. I don't know how long the winter's going to last. I don't know what the winter's made of. I don't know how difficult it is. But here's what I know. Some people need to hear that it's okay to pull into the harbor and take a break. Find some peace. Find some comfort. Find some tranquility to life. Because the storm is beating all around you. If that's you, I'm telling you, God has a fair haven. He wants you to pull into the harbor. Quit trying to fight the sea all by yourself. And find the harbor of trust in God. Take a break. Revive yourself. Step back so that you can look at things circumspectly and see the whole picture. You're too close. You're in the storm. Need to back up in the harbor of Fair Haven. And you come down to verse 17. Acts 27 and verse 17. They're in the ship. They're in the sea there, rather. In the ship. And the storm is beating. And look at what verse 17 says that they did. They began to hoist. Okay. Those hands mean I don't know what happened, in case y'all didn't see them. So verse 17, if you don't have your Bible. After hoisting the lifeboats, they used supports to undergird the ship. Some translations say they used ropes to run under. Some translations say they used cables to fortify the ship. Now, whatever you're seeing there, to undergird the ship, they are trying to support a ship that is being battered. And how this was done, I really don't know how you get something under a ship that is in the midst of the water, in the midst of the sea, but somehow, some way, they were able to put extra supports under there to try to hold this thing together. What I'm thinking this morning is there are some people in this building that are out in the midst of the sea and the storm of life, and the harbor ain't nowhere close. You can't get to the harbor. You did just what Paul and the other people on this ship did. You left Fair Havens, and there's no going back to it at this point. And so what are you going to do? You're going to sit there and let your ship be battered and beaten and broken to the point that you just sink? Is that what you're going to do? I wouldn't recommend it. I would rather recommend what they did in verse 17. That you find some ropes of trust and confidence and faith and support and love and care, and that you wrap them around the whole of your ship. You're in the storm. You can't go nowhere. You're going to have to ride it out. But you can find support to help you ride it out. To endure the storm that you're encountering. And to undergird your ship so that it'll be stronger. Putting your trust in help and support, in the ability for others to come to your rescue and to your aid. And take those extra ropes and undergird it. It may be that you come down to verse 29 and you just do what they had to do there. They're getting close to land. As they're getting close to land, they're afraid that they may run up on some rocks. And if they run up on some rocks, it's surely to tear the bottom of the ship out. And last time I checked, a ship without its bottom don't float too well. And so we can't, we're just about to run onto devastation. And we were in the Fair Haven, we were in the harbor, we chose to come out of the harbor, we got out in the midst of the storm, we tried to support the ship by undergirding it with additional ropes. And now we feel like the crash is inevitable. So what do? They let down 4 anchors from the stern or the back of the ship. If I understand it correctly, they would have let down 2 on each side to keep the ship from turning left or right, but to keep it headed in that direction, held by those 4 anchors out the back. And they prayed for day to come. It may be this morning that you are in the night of the storm and you feel like a crash is inevitable. You know, at least if you're going to hit something, you'd like to see what you're about to hit, right? So at least if we can get this ship to hang on through the night, at least by morning, we can see what's coming at least and know what we're about to crash into. That may be how you feel right now. It's dark, it's gloomy, it's dreary, and you just feel it. You, like a sailor, know the shore is coming, and there's a crash. Need to put out some anchors. We're trying to hang on here. We're trying to slow this thing down. We're trying to stop it if possible. We're praying for day. We're praying for light. We're praying for hope. What are those 4 anchors? Well, let me ask you, do you feel God's presence in your life? If not, why not? Why do you not have the anchor of God's presence? I can tell you why you might not have it. Isaiah 59 would tell you that your sin and your iniquity. God's ear is not closed that he can't hear. Or God's arm is not shortened that he can't reach. But it's our sin and our iniquity. It's our choices in life. It's our rebellion. It's our cowardness. It's our disobedience that separates us from the presence of God. And what an anchor to know that God is near. You know, the only anchor the Bible speaks of, found in the book of Hebrews, is the anchor of hope. Does the presence of God not provide hope? To know that God is near and that He's close? Do you have the anchor of being God's possession? If not, why not? Why don't you belong to God? That's your choice. God's already made His choice. He says, I want you to belong to me. I want to provide a way through Jesus that you can be my child. If you don't have the anchor of God's possession, it's because you've chosen not to belong to God. God still wants you. He still wants you to be His possession. He still wants to call you His own. Do you have the anchor of God's purpose? No, I don't, because I'm living the way I want to live, and I'm living according to my purpose. What a terrible way to live. How's that working out for you? Are you tossed in the storm and feeling like you're about to crash? It may be that you need a different purpose for your life. You may need God's purpose. What an anchor. When I am founded and held by the purpose that God has for my life, I don't have to question what I'm supposed to be doing or how I'm supposed to act or how I'm supposed to behave or how I'm supposed to treat people. I know. Because I'm living by God's purpose. And He's told me. There were 4 of them, wasn't there? How about God's promises? Well, that ought to anchor you. Man, that ought to anchor you. To know that eternity exists and God is on the other side and He has a home in heaven prepared for His children. That's a promise. To know that if I confess my sins, God is faithful and just to forgive me and to cleanse me from all unrighteousness. That's a promise. What an anchor. Does it provide hope? Absolutely. Because I am confident in the promises of God. Where's your trust? What are you banking on this morning? Is it the God of heaven? Or is it something else? If it's something else, God's offering you the anchors for life. Would you accept them? You got to take them on His terms, not yours. But if you'll take them on His terms, He's offering them. We as a church would love to support you in that decision and encourage you in that walk and in that life. If you'd let us do that publicly, we invite you to come as together we stand and sing.
Seated, please.
Good morning. It's good to see everyone. We have a lot of visitors today. Thank you for being here. Remind the members to pick up a copy of the Leoma Family News for the event. Man, one more person. Seriously, one more person. Are we sure that's right? Where was Henry today? That would have got it. I don't have a lot of extra announcements than what's in the Leoma Family News, so be sure and get a copy of that. We would like to mention that Joshua Hester's dad, Joshua is our summer intern. His dad was involved in a chainsaw accident this weekend. He was flown to the hospital, had surgery last night, but he is up and walking this morning, so we wanted to remember Joshua's dad in our prayers. Just a reminder that the office will be closed Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That's the 24th, 25th, and 26th. If you need anything, go ahead and call the office and leave a message on the machine, and Marie will get back with you just as soon as possible. There will be no service at Summit tomorrow evening.